Let's start with two sets of astounding numbers. First, there are currently 250,000 Chinese working in Silicon Valley, with over 20,000 of them being graduates from China's top uni, Tsinghua University. Second, over 200,000 Chinese graduates from the domestic 985 project elite universities are working in the US. This phenomenon is also very common in Europe and is growing more pronounced. Do you know why so many academically accomplished overseas students don't return to China after graduation? If they return, do you understand the level of competition they would face? This May, a list of civil servant positions in Beijing's Chaoyang district that was made public included a doctoral graduate from Peking University, employed in urban management in the Jiuxiangqiao Street Office, while two urban management officers in the Chaowai Street Office were graduates of the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences and the Foreign Affairs College respectively. Moreover, a master's graduate from the University of Manchester in the UK was appointed to an urban management post in Cuigezhuang Village District. This is an unavoidable dilemma. Despite Huawei offering an attractive annual salary of 2 million yuan, it still cannot compete with the benefits of a Beijing hukou, or household registration, and what it provides in the Chaoyang district. With a Beijing hukou, you can access high-quality education and medical resources, benefit from housing policies, address the issue of children getting into top schools, and increase their chances of being admitted to prestigious institutions like Tsinghua and Peking University. Additionally, Beijing hukou holders can avoid the hassle of complex documentation and more easily apply for price-capped houses, safeguarding the quality of life for the whole family. This is a true representation of the competition that overseas Chinese face in the domestic job market, against the backdrop of China's economy heading for a downturn and social issues becoming more prominent. As the pandemic lockdown eases, many overseas Chinese have begun returning home to visit, but the social and economic conditions they witness cause them a deep sense of disappointment. Liu Haiyang, approaching his 30s, has found his niche in Canada. He recently spent 3 months in China after returning for the first time since he left in 2019. His strongest impression of this return was the solitude and indifference of Chinese society. Barber shops and massage parlors on the streets of Beijing were closing down, and once bustling places like Wangfujing and Sanlitun seemed very bleak. Additionally, he felt unprecedented indifference and impatience in his interactions with delivery personnel in the service industry, which was closely related to the current employment situation. They are under great work pressure, low income, full of anger, and almost on the verge of collapse. This return to China made him more determined to stay in Canada. Next, Xie Fanfei's complaints reflect the seriousness of environmental problems. Xie Fanfei has been working in the mining industry in Limpopo Province, South Africa, for 7 or 8 years. After returning to China in March and April of this year, he was deeply troubled by air pollution and high population density, and even got the flu twice in a row. He believes that the competition in China is fierce, the employment pressure is high, the economic situation is not good, and the development speed is slowing down. In contrast, the economic benefits abroad are more considerable. Lastly, Ms. Liang's troubles reflect the impact of China's policy control on overseas Chinese. Ms. Liang is studying in California, USA, and originally planned to return to China to visit relatives next year. But she is worried that China's epidemic prevention and control policies will prevent her from leaving the country again. To solve this problem, she is applying for a US tourist visa for her parents, aiming to let them reunite, and also to let them see firsthand that life in the US is not as crisis-ridden and rife with gun violence as described by Chinese media. 3 stories, 3 kinds of worries. Different life trajectories interweave a picture of modern China, revealing the deep contradiction and worry of overseas Chinese about returning home. This group of people in their 30s show us a society in China with a strong sense of grievance, prominent environmental pollution problems, and government control policies that make it difficult to predict the future. Their stories reflect the complexity and diversity of this era. In addition, for many expatriates who choose to return to China for employment, they are facing more serious problems. Echoing the life difficulties encountered by the 3 overseas Chinese we discussed earlier, their employment difficulties also reveal the complexity and diversity of this era. Firstly, the reduction in job opportunities fills the returnees with uncertainty about the future. As Wall Street gradually withdraws its investment in China and many industrial chains are also gradually leaving China, even the middle management positions in multinational companies or intermediate and junior leadership positions in state-owned enterprises that the returnees originally hoped to enter are now becoming scarce. This contradiction in the job market is particularly severe for those Chinese with degrees from prestigious overseas universities, because they face strong competition from graduates of top-ranking domestic 985 universities. In addition, those expatriates who are originally from second- and third-tier Chinese cities and who hope to settle in big cities such as Beijing, their dreams are becoming increasingly out of reach. As Beijing's institutions, including the central government, state-owned enterprises, and various ministries, are laying off staff, the opportunities for returnees without political background to enter the field are dwindling. At the same time, the significant drop in income puts great life pressure on the returnees. A returnee who had a degree from one of the top 10 universities in the US could once earn a monthly salary of $20,000 in China. But now, even if they get a salary of $10,000, it's considered to be quite good. In such an environment, those without any connections or background, but hoping to enter better industries, may be faced with a form of contempt. Even those who have successfully found a job and even entered the civil service are facing a series of problems in their careers. The complexity of interpersonal relationships, the drudgery and boredom of work make them feel tired. For the ones from ordinary families, they know they can only be promoted to a certain level and cannot make further breakthroughs. What they expect is to get a certain promotion while avoiding layoffs. However, in China, such expectations are becoming increasingly difficult to achieve because China's economic situation is on a downhill. These predicaments have led many returnees and overseas Chinese to reassess their future and reconsider their decision to return home. Their confusion and helplessness also become a microcosm of China's current economic and social problems. Presently, China's economic situation is growing increasingly severe, with the Purchasing Managers' Index, or PMI, for manufacturing falling below 50% for 3 consecutive months, indicating that the manufacturing sector has entered a state of contraction. Though the non-manufacturing PMI still remains above 50%, it saw a decline between May and June, hinting at an increasingly fragile economic recovery process in China. This situation has led to the most severe unemployment crisis in Chinese history, particularly among young people under 24, where the unemployment rate has soared to 46.5%. Due to the raised age threshold for job applications, some middle-aged unemployed individuals can be frequently seen at Starbucks in the city. Domestic publicly listed companies have seen an average reduction in their workforce by 12% compared to before the pandemic, with 10% of companies having ceased operations or even deregistered. Large companies, including online and e-commerce conglomerates like Tencent, Alibaba, Meituan, and Baidu, have had a layoff rate reaching 9% in the first quarter of this year. Layoffs are even more severe in industries such as tourism, education, and real estate. If the total number of full-time workers in the national youth is 250 million, then assuming 10% are unemployed or laid off, this means that among young people under 35, potentially 25 million could face unemployment. The enormity of this figure is such that no one can be sure they won't become part of this wave of unemployment. The backdrop of this wave of unemployment differs from the past 2 occasions. It occurred after the pandemic exhausted a large amount of national resources, and also when Western countries imposed sanctions on China and shifted industrial chains. Its scale and impact are unpredictable, covering all sectors, including young people, manufacturing workers, civil servants, and employees of large internet companies. Various workers across the entire nation might face the prospect of layoffs. Faced with such a crisis, the Chinese government seems to still be seeking effective response strategies. In such a severe economic situation, people are filled with worries about the future. Avoiding being laid off has become a kind of luck. Hence, those overseas returnees from ordinary families without any particular background are no longer as willing to return to their homeland. Even those Chinese individuals who have good incomes from working abroad and might wish to seek better opportunities at home are now starting to lose interest in returning. On one hand, their domestic salaries could be much lower than abroad. On the other hand, after actually experiencing the work environment and pressure in China, they found a stark contrast with their experiences abroad. Furthermore, they noticed that career advancement in China is full of obstacles and challenges. Taking the experience of one overseas netizen as an example, he once harbored dreams of working in China, but after a brief return to China to visit his family, he found he could not adapt to the Chinese work environment. His friends working in large domestic companies often had to work overtime continuously, while his working life abroad was relatively relaxed, with 25 days of vacation per year, no need to bear excessive work pressure, and even enjoyed housing loan benefits provided by the government. This lifestyle made his friends in China envious. Moreover, he came from a middle-class family in China, which to some extent made it difficult for him to integrate into the upper echelons of society. He found that those from higher social backgrounds were more easily respected in the workplace, as they had a deep understanding of the rules and games of high society. To cross over from the middle class to the upper class, one might need special abilities or characteristics. For example, women need both beauty and wisdom, while men need a high degree of intelligence and unique skills in order to be recognized in this class. This is an unavoidable reality. Faced with such a path to promotion, this netizen ultimately chose to stay overseas. Many outstanding youths born into middle-class families have been educated in key schools from an early age, from top high schools to top universities under the 985 and 211 project, and finally study abroad. Living abroad has led them to start thinking deeply about themselves, to start contacting a wider world, and to realize that there can be countless ways to life. They don't necessarily aspire to become the CEO of a large corporation, or wield immense influence within an industry. What they yearn for is a free life, where they won't be disturbed by others and can freely pursue their inner passions. They can try all sorts of things and meet all sorts of people. Especially in European companies, colleagues and superiors are incredibly friendly. The work atmosphere is relaxed and enjoyable, and people will lend a helping hand wherever it's needed. They don't need to work overtime, their holidays won't be deprived, and if there are situations requiring overtime, they can earn double or even triple pay. Such a working environment satisfies them to the fullest. Some people do not seek career advancements, yet they still aspire to return to their homeland to live and work. However, when they think about the issue of information transparency in China, they feel incredibly perplexed. Videos about rural elderly pension issues, initially aimed at drawing public attention, are blocked on various social media platforms, leaving them confused and even somewhat disappointed. The truth about last year's air crash by China Eastern Airlines remains largely undisclosed, leaving them puzzled. They are uneasy about the Chinese Communist Party's attempt to make the public forget about these issues. These expatriates have expressed that while they understand the difficulties in governing a country, they believe open and transparent discussions are key to social progress. They worry that if they return home, they will be treated like gullible children. Having lived abroad for a long time, they have experienced the high transparency of public affairs in countries such as the United States. They are aware that anyone can access public property registration information, and the public has a high level of participation in community affairs, such as opening or closing schools. They say that even if they cannot participate in elections, they still appreciate this open and transparent social environment. They worry that if China does not improve its information transparency, they will not be able to truly feel happy and secure even if they return home. As for the Chinese coming from the bottom of the society, they are even more reluctant to return to China. They may have been born into ordinary families in China and might not be academically inclined. They've worked in various factories in China, expanding their social circle, and eventually given the opportunity to work abroad. One such young man, through a friend's recommendation, successfully interviewed at a Fortune 500 company in Singapore. Whilst working at the company in 2022, he earned $120,000 in just 10 months. His life is not overly exhausting, and he is able to earn approximately $1,500 per month. The company gives bonuses 3 times a year, and he can get about 40,000 Singapore dollars in total. In addition, he has 14 days of annual leave and sick leave, with 70% of medical expenses being reimbursed. His reason for choosing to stay abroad is simple. He felt the pressure of life in China was too great. He used to work 11 hours a day in an environment reaching 37 degrees Celsius, a situation unimaginable to many. Hence, it's easy to understand the reason he prefers to stay overseas. Even if one does not consider the issues of societal pressure, work intensity, and cultural environment in China, many Chinese students studying abroad express that it's still hard to find true happiness in China. In China, life's pace seems to have become a fixed rhythm, lacking novelty and challenge. In contrast, abroad, they can meet different kinds of people, experience diverse cultures, broaden their horizons, try new and interesting things, and enjoy freedom of speech. In China, social life is mostly occupied by trivialities of life and work. The environment is oppressive and less accepting of different opinions and personalities. Many Chinese international students believe that abroad they can freely pursue their interests and hobbies without worrying about others' judgment. Actually, we can paint an even more detailed picture. In a land far away from China, Chinese people can enjoy the 9-to-5 work hours with little need for a heavy overtime. Even if overtime is required, it is duly compensated. China's deep-rooted 996 work system, working 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week, seems like a different world. Even during the pandemic, when they worked abroad, their wages were not cut, and life maintained a steady rhythm to a certain extent. For example, in Canada, whether they are programmers, office workers, taxi drivers, plumbers, or even domestic helpers, their incomes can easily reach several thousand Canadian dollars. Some recent programming graduates who just started working at large companies like Amazon, Google, or Microsoft even earn more than 10,000 Canadian dollars per month, their skills fully recognized. As they walk down quiet streets looking at detached houses priced only 600,000 or 700,000 Canadian dollars, thinking they could afford one in a few more years of work, they feel life is full of hope and possibilities. They hope that their children, if they become ordinary workers in the future, can feel relaxed at work and their income can meet their needs for life. They choose to stay abroad because they can be kinder, more straightforward, and more genuinely themselves. Well, friends, that's the story we have to share today. Look at how these distant and mysterious lands of freedom have transformed the lives of the Chinese. Perhaps this might inspire us, prompting us to scrutinize our lives from a different angle, or fill us with hope for the future. Remember, no matter where we are, our hearts are always together. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, and we look forward to meeting you again on this platform of shared stories.